I am absolutely back. So, hey, everyone who is here. And so that's probably the single-handedly most embarrassing thing that could possibly happen to a presenter here. It has happened to me. I got booted out, but thankfully technology is gracious and grateful. And we're able to sign back in. And so I'm going to try to share my screen a little bit. And I just want to show you all a little itty bitty video that kind of introduces me as well as my plays, and then we will jump right into Living Right, and we'll jump into the Angels Academy trilogy, and we'll read a little bit from both of those. So let me see. All right, can you all see that? I hope you can. And it's the sound playing because I don't hear it. You get some of the amazing visuals, and we'll talk about all of these in just a second if you can't quite hear it. That's me. There you go. More of me. Right. So I promise. I thought I selected share audio. I'll get it all fixed by Friday when I present again. It's okay. We'll make it all happen today. But so the first book that I want to talk about is Living Right. So one of the things when about I guess it's been longer than that. Now, it's been almost 12 years now. I came back, I moved back to Atlanta from a job that I had in Indiana, and I was in an MFA program, and I had my calling on my life into the ministry, and I knew for a fact that I was not, and I mean, absolutely was like, I'm not supposed to pastor. This is just not my life. This is not my job. And I knew this because my grandfather is a pastor, my mom is a pastor, my uncles and my aunts are ministers and pastors, and I was just like, I just don't see it for me. That doesn't mean that I don't get a chance to go into the pulpit and I don't get a chance to preach, because I do think that that's a little different than pastoring. For me, I just knew my life looked different. I just knew for a fact that I had other things going on and I had other gifts to share in a different kind of way. And so for me, I was like, well, what is it that I do, and in what ways do I do it? And one of the things that came up for me was that I like to obviously write plays. I was in a theater program and I was writing plays for theater, but I wasn't necessarily writing plays for ministry just yet. And so it kind of made me very nervous, but I had an awesome awesome pastor who was like, look, Amina, you do what you do. I will support whatever it is that you do, however it is that you do it, because what I'm going to do is we're going to make sure that you just do your ministry however it works in the way that you like for it to work. I never had that kind of freedom before, and I just knew for a fact that I would have to be in a certain kind of environment, and I would have to absolutely do a certain kind of thing in order to be a minister. And my pastor was like, no, if you want to write plays, go write some plays. And so the first challenge was, all right, so let's write some plays. But even before that, my challenge was, well, what about the plays that already exist? So what about the plays that are already out there? So maybe instead of writing them, and I know I was writing, but I was like, well, maybe I can find a play and I can just direct some plays. I don't have to maybe do all of the writing in the same way. Well, what happened was I was finding scripts that, well, they weren't bad scripts. They just weren't necessarily relevant. They kind of didn't go even with the conventions of wisdom that we were getting in my MFA program. And not that necessarily all of them kind of translated over, but there were some things that I was like, oh, wow, I really kind of wish that in this particular production that we could do this. Or there was very often a lot of singing and a lot of pageantry, which is also very amazing and is very useful and wonderful in how you can do it. The problem is that with all of the pageantry, a lot of times the story fell flat. And even still, too, because I'm Methodist, and specifically one of the Black Methodist traditions, very often I found that a lot of the work that we were seeing is not actually catered to us. And so it was very difficult for me to say, okay, let's translate this over. Let's make this all happen. And I wanted very much to just be in a situation where I could really kind of make sure that things reflected what my group was working with, reflected the kind of work that that we were seeing, that reflected the kind of people that we were meeting everywhere. And also too, just could also make it so that it could be a part of the worship liturgy. So I wanted some things that also kind of included our particular kind of liturgy and our particular polity that could work. And so that was kind of what the initial presumption was in order to make this particular thing happen. And so I was like, okay, so how can we do this? This can absolutely work. And so I was like, well, let's set out to do something really, really simple. Let's find a basic Bible story. So the challenge was to find some good Bible stories to start with, to do some really good exegetical work, and then translate it into a way that really could work for the people that we knew. And so what we came up with was, I was like, well, why don't we have to do some Jesus stories, because it was around Resurrection Sunday. Kind of lends itself to that. When Resurrection Sunday is really easy to be like, yes, it's Easter, so let's do this. And so I was like, but which of Jesus's parables or stories could make it really easy for something that we could understand now? And so I chose the Samaritan woman, and basically Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well, and what it would look like today if we had those particular persons, and if we actually met those people here. And so this particular story is what we call a pageant. And I'll talk about that more on Friday, because it does include dance. It does very much include music. It does include the arts, and it includes a lot of visual arts and things of that nature as well. At least that's the intent of it. And so the idea is that if you are actually developing this particular story, or if you're actually going to perform it in your group, that you would work with multiple ministries and that you would work with multiple groups in order to make it happen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you some of the dialogue from the play. One of the things that happened in some of the plays that I have is that I would get actors who also have screen time. And so I could not record them because I would have to pay them every single time I showed them. And I didn't have the kind of money to do that just yet in my real life. But in the future, I will have some things. So today, and even for the book itself, you'll be getting the script to perform it and interpret it however you do it. The other thing is too, I made it this way so that you all didn't have to pay exorbitant fees for a royalty. So sometimes when you produce a play, especially if you go like the dramatist, the dramatist publishing group, or if you go to some of the Samuel French or any of those, then you have to pay like $75 for each time you actually do a play, as well as pay other royalties, and then have to make sure you buy all the books and things of that nature. And I wanted to kind of make it so that we could get out of that particular element of it. But there may be some things that come in the future where there are actually some videos of this as well. But this is designed for you to be able to take this into your worship space and to be able to actually perform it and actually assign people and direct it and get your particular church involved or particular community involved in the actual show. And so it is written as a normal play, and there's a book. So my books, this particular book did not come in time, but it will be by Friday. It'll be here tonight after we're done. But I actually do have the cover of it, and I will show a cover of it in just 1 second so you can see it. It was in a small video and I was more worried about sound, but I'll show you a picture of the picture in just 1 second so you can see it and just kind of know what the cover is. And they're both also on Amazon so that you can do those in that, and you can access those in that way. And so there are two characters in this particular scene. I'll first read the stage directions, and then I will change my voices. You get to see me act today. We have Joshua, who is the Jesus figure in this particular play, and Samarra, who is the Samaritan woman. And so we will kind of just kind of walk through some of the the stage directions and some of the dialogue for this particular show. So if you all would bear with me, and if we were in person, I'd be like, y'all, I get to read with me today. But since we're here, you'll get to hear all of my voices today. So welcome to Amina's Playhouse, and how I normally write my own plays and read them out loud. So this is Living Right. Lights up. Joshua walks into the room. He is an ordinary man with jeans, a t-shirt, and a hat. He's not dirty, but looks worn and tired. He stops halfway down the aisle and stops to have a seat. He takes out his canteen, turns it upside down, noting that there is no water. Samarra walks by, carrying a large bottle of water. Excuse me, may I have some water? Samarra keeps walking. Excuse me, ma'am, I ain't got no money for you. I don't want your money. Like, I already have a man, 3 baby fathers, 2 ex-husbands, and 1 guy you're currently living with. I'd say you have many men. Who are you? Who told you that? This better not be a reality TV show. No, but I'll be moving on now. Didn't you say you want some water? The water I have access to is eternal. If you'd like, you can try some from my parents. How? Pray with me. Samarra and Joshua kneel to pray. The leader goes to the podium. This particular, I will make a caveat here in my reading to pause for a second and say that this particular play actually incorporates the CME tradition of communion. And so it's actually printed in here because it is supposed to be in place of worship service, and the play actually ends with communion service. And so I will continue reading some more of this particular scene and read another one from later on in the scene. But I'll go ahead and read how this one ends. So let us unite in the historic confession of the Christian faith. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The 3rd day he arose from the dead. He ascended to heaven and sitteth at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. And from this he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen. The leader steps down. Joshua and Samarra get up and hug. Now, go. Get your life together. The choir sings. Suggested songs that I play here are, I do have some suggested songs as well as some original songs in here, but this particular one is a suggested song. So yes, you know what, we'll talk about that, Donna, because I love that the play is a worship service too, because sometimes you get like a play, you don't know where to put it in, and sometimes you feel like, let's just do all of it as a whole thing, then it's actually a lot more fun, and it also kind of lends itself to some other opportunities. So the choir sings Stranger by Donald Lawrence. The dancers who are sitting in the audience are chatting with each other. Jesus enters, covered completely. And as he passes by the seats, the dancers all stand and chat about the man. As the song nears the end, Jesus and the dancers exit. Lights down. Lights up on the barbershop. Neil is in a chair being shaped up by Ian. Okay, so I can't do all that. That's got like about 5 or 10 different people in it. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pause there. But there's what is that Samarra, the guy who Samarra is dating at the time, is in the barbershop. So we start with Samarra, talk about her experience with the Joshua character, and then we go into seeing his character, and then we kind of see how their relationship changes, because after, of course, crisis happens, she's just like, well, I got to do something different. I can't play with you, that kind of thing. But it also does incorporate a couple other different Bible stories in here. So it incorporates also the woman with the issue of blood. It incorporates, of course, because the woman with the issue of blood story is already naturally tied to the little girl who passes away and gets called and raised back up. So both of those are in there as well. And so there's some other different kinds of things too. That are in there. She has a best friend, Mika, who is in the play as well, who actually is wondering about some different kinds of things too, and they have a question. And so this is, this is a little bit later on down in the play. So part of it is really trying to make sure that the story is told and give some really interesting conversation to the dancers as well, because so one of my belief is that every art also tells a story. So there should be no art inside of the play or inside of any of the presentations that do not also tell a story too. And so while there being parables being shown as well, we end up doing Vanessa Bell Armstrong's version of Peace Be Still. And so there's Jesus sleeping on the boat. And then we see kind of the dancers actually helping to enact Peace Be Still, but it's also kind of a way of showing that trouble is brewing in the larger play itself. But it also makes it so it's interesting for the dancers to have some stories that they're going to tell alongside with the main story. And so it's kind of a fuller worship experience. And that way too, you can kind of still have the places where you would naturally have music and naturally have dance in the worship experience, so that you're actually able to see what's going on with that. And so this particular one, and I'll read this one. This is Nylon and Samarra. So Nylon is Nylon is Samarra's, the man that she's currently living with. And so this is after, of course, she's met Christ and she's like, yeah, I can't live with you anymore. And so this is their particular conversation. And this takes place after, even after we find out that there's someone plotting to get Joshua arrested because he's coming and he's making disruptions and people just like him in town. And everybody's like, we like him. And people are like, well, you're disrupting town, which sounds so familiar. Like what happens when a new person comes into church and we just are like, we can't play with them because they do things different. And we're terrible sometimes to new church members. And so it's kind of also that particular kind of lesson. And so this one is, so we're here, we talk about lights up on Nylon and Samarra, who is packing. And so they're in the middle of an argument here. So Nylon, I respect your decision. I just don't understand how you can make such a rash decision off of a guy you met for only a second. He showed me my life. I have to change how we do things. But do we have to move out? I mean, can you just start over and do right from here? Look, if you love me, then you'll have to see how this will change my life. Besides, I want Amara to be around the kind of relationship I want her to have. You need to take Amara to get checked out. That cough of hers doesn't sound good. Look, as soon as we're done moving, I'll take care of her. Well, I can take her to the doctor. I think it's better if we wait. I don't want her to keep relying on you. You're unemployed. I can get her taken care of. No. What does this mean for us? We'd have to start over. Completely? Well, this is a new life, new things. Okay, well, if it's what you want, if this is what you want. Look, I love you and I'm not letting you go that easy. I'll keep you in mind. Enter Amara. Amara is Samarra's daughter. Mommy, I don't feel so well. Amara faints. Samarra and Nylon work on her, giving her CPR. Mika comes in with help, and so do the others. I'm sorry, Mika comes in to help. Mika's her best friend, and so do the others. What can I do? Go find Joshua. And Mika exits. And then there's a dance sequence that comes up about dances, healing, and the tears. And of course, Amara passes away because this is the little girl who has to get raised up. And then Joshua comes in later. So, but that is part of Living Right. And Living Right actually does end. There is a space in Living Right for there to also be an altar call. There is a space in Living Right also for there to be the actual act of communion within the actual place. So if people want to actually take communion and you want to just do it in place of, the play itself is the sermon, is the proclamation. If you were in Dr. McNeil's class today, then we talked about the fact that those could be in those areas. And so you don't have to worry about, for this particular Sunday, people can still feel as if they had a full sermonic moment and a full proclamation moment with this particular play. And this play is available on Amazon. It's also available on my website, but my website is doing something funny today. So I wanted to make sure that you all could actually have that if you clicked on all the links that you could actually get what you are looking for. And the link is, of course, inside of here as well. And so what I do want to do is I do want to turn my attention then now a little bit to the book. So now if you are one of the scholars, you actually didn't get Living Right because Living Right is a little older. I've actually had it done to my knowledge about 3 or 4 times. So I directed it twice. I directed it at my church the first time, and then we directed it at our larger conference in 2016 for my denomination, which was also kind of fun because at the time people were, when it came to the ritual, because people were like, we're watching a play. Okay, great. But then the ritual pops up and they were all like, well, why are we saying this communion ritual? Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, so now you're part of the interactive process because you know the communion works. And so they were also doing communion as a part of the work that they were doing. And so it was pretty exciting to have to see that out loud. But I've also had a couple churches contact me, and I didn't see all of those particular productions, but I've had a couple people write me and ask me if they could do the play, and I was like, that's perfectly fine, sure, that works. And so, but Living Right is a play that is kind of dear to my heart because it was one of the first times that I was able to really kind of see how I could write for church specifically, and to rethink, really kind of think about the Bible stories and make them very tangible. And that was really an important element for me. And also too, I just felt like I saw some of the people in the community that I grew up with and the people that I knew wanted to see themselves, because some of us, depending on what ministry and what areas we live in, I live in an area, or at least my church is in an area, from a lot of different kinds of economic backgrounds, and they're not all the cleanest and the most well put together family lives. And so if you know people who've had multiple baby fathers, or if you know people who have had multiple marriages and have different children and are trying to figure out their lives, then that was the same kind. It would lend itself to the kind of conversation that we don't like to have in church, where we talk about people under closed doors and we talk about them in secret, but we're not saying, oh no, you know what, you are here, and here's somebody who might look like you on this stage, and we can talk about how your life could look, and not shame you, but also just kind of support you, and talking about what things would look like. And then also too, having the conversation about what it looks like when you actually change your life, and everybody around you may not understand what the change in your life looks like, because that is also a real conversation. One of the things I will say, and I'll talk even more about this on Friday, is that one of the things that I absolutely love about this particular sequence, and this particular what happened when we started doing drama ministry at my church, is that you would start getting everybody to come in. So people who weren't necessarily involved in other ministries would be like, oh, well, that seems unsuspecting enough. I'll come and try drama. And so you would have people come in and be like, oh, I got to memorize lines. Oh, I got to come to church. Oh, but I can come to church in the middle of the week. And so for people who didn't feel as if they could always come to church on just Sundays, they would come in the middle of the week, and they would be involved and engaged in the process. I would have people walk up to me, be like, hey, you know what, I sew at home, if you ever need me to do some costumes. So we would go and drop off fabric at people's houses, and drop off thread, so that they would use their sewing machines, and then they would come up with things themselves. And so that was actually really exciting to see how people would do their own, how they would do that work. And so, and then we also have people who, for example, and I actually have some pictures on my computer of this next particular play that I can show you, and it won't conflict with any body's rights or anything, and I have permission to use them. But they, one of the things is that, for example, we had a guy who did woodwork, and so he built us a donkey. And so this donkey is still at my church where we did this play, and they still pull it out twice a year. They pull it out at Christmas, and they pull it out on Palm Sunday, and we roll the donkey all up and down around the sanctuary. But I didn't even know that this particular guy, and I've known him for years, but I did not know that this particular member was that into woodworking and would build things for us. And they would just donate things to the ministry because they were like, wow, you got us involved. And so we would get people just more excited about the work and more excited about just the particular thing that we were doing. And that was absolutely. So absolutely gave us seamstresses and carpenters. Absolutely. Because that was something that they really appreciated, and something that they also they were able to be like, oh, I have this hidden talent, and I contributed to this particular production in this way because of my hidden talent. So that was exciting. So the next this other play is one that I actually really love. And this one doesn't stick to the scripture as much. It's a little bit more imaginative, which is why I like it, I think, the most. It's this particular series is the Angel Academy's trilogy, and I'm actually going to read the first of the Angels Academy's trilogy. It is about persons who are angels in training. So they go to heaven. Ideally, people go to heaven. But when you get to heaven, you don't know what you're doing yet. You're just like, oh, I'm here. But wait, hold on. Wait, I haven't done this yet. What do I do? And so the idea is that when you get to heaven, you actually have to train to be an angel. And so you have to go through Angels Academy. The premise is that Gabriel is supposed to teach Angels Academy. However, Gabriel wants to play a practical joke on Michael, And when Gabriel plays a practical joke on Michael, then he actually does not. Michael ends up teaching Angels Academy, and of course later on it becomes this whole big old thing and conversations and such about this particular one. And so it's this particular play and this particular trilogy. This particular trilogy actually is the one that's in the book, but it's Angels Academy, which is around the Christmas story, Angels Academy 2, which is around the resurrection story, and the last one is actually about just one of the siblings of the angels. And so it's a particular trilogy because it has all three inside of the story. And so here is, so I'll read a little bit from it, and then I'll show you some of the pictures from this particular play that we have done in the past that I do have. And again, I didn't videotape these, but I do have production pictures, which is also very typical of live church audiences. But I do want to encourage you that when you do it in your own spaces, that you do at least, record it for your own records, because I do think that that's important to have the records there. And so we will start with, let me see. I'll do, and so this one actually includes Christmas songs as well. It's also a pageant. So there's room for dance, there's room for singing. So I'll read through scene one. We'll read a little bit of some of Michael and Gabriel's conversation. We'll talk a little bit about Tasha, Cynthia, and Marcus as well. And I'll also do some of the dancers. And so you just kind of see how some of the dance sequences work here. So I'll just read from it, and then I'll show you a few of the pictures, and then we'll talk about some other stuff after that and see kind of if there's anything that you all want to know, et cetera, et cetera. So lights up on the message center. Michael has on dirty fighting gear, wings, and is carrying his weapons. He looks tired yet invigorated. Michael throws down his sword. Michael comes to his mailbox and sees a letter. He opens the letter and gets angry. Michael tears it up and jumps on it. He leaves looking for someone on a mission. He comes back, picks up the sword, then the letter pieces. Lights crossfade. Tasha, Cynthia, and Marcus, all dressed in white, come back and check their mailboxes. They open up their mail. The dancers are attendants also checking their mail. Tasha, look, I got in. I'm well on my way. Cynthia, to what? Tasha, Angels Academy. Didn't you apply? Marcus, only because they make us. I really don't want to go. Cynthia, are you kidding? They only choose the best to get in. And even then, there's no guarantee that you'll get your wings. Marcus, who wants to sit in a class all day and learn about angel stuff? We'll probably be taught by some punk angel who got stuck with the duty. Besides, all the good jobs are already taken. Tasha, well, maybe we'll get taught by Gabriel. He's God's voice to the people, Cynthia, ooh, or Raphael. We can learn how to heal. Cynthia runs her hands together and runs her hands over Tasha's back like she's doing Reiki. Marcus to Cynthia, don't you see? Why don't you see if you got in first? Tasha, well, why wouldn't she? Marcus, there is no guarantee. Cynthia looks at the envelope. Tasha, forget what he's saying. Cynthia, just open it. Cynthia opens the envelope. Just then, a dancer opens her envelope and runs crying. Cynthia watches the scene and doesn't pull out the letter. Cynthia, I can't do it. Marcus, I'll read it. Tasha, why? She doesn't need your brand of discouragement. Cynthia, no, I'll do it. She reads it and sighs. I got in. Tasha, why did you do that to her? Marcus, because she fell for it. Cynthia, well, what about you, Marcus? Marcus opening his letter. Man, I got in too. Tasha, well, this class will be fun watching you squirm. Marcus, well, if I could contest this, Cynthia, in front of who, Marcus? Up here, you got to go where God sends you. So lights dim on Cynthia, Marcus, and Tasha. And then the choir will sing, Children Go Where I Send Thee. And you can have a children's choir sing, or you can just have like kind of a praise team singing Children Go Where I Send Thee, which most people don't realize is actually considered an African-American Christmas African-American traditional Christmas hymn. And so I tried to use the ones that would be considered African-American Christmas hymns that we may have sung when we were younger, but may or may not have seen as the actual, may not have known that was the history, because I didn't know that was the history before I started looking them up. And I was like, oh, I know these songs because we'd just been singing them. And I just did not realize that they were what they were. So The music continues to play under the next scene. Gabriel is sitting in the dark. Michael comes rushing in, bumping against everything. Gabriel, standing up to greet him. Michael, how was the battle? Gabe, well, I need to see the Almighty One. Gabriel, you can't see him. Michael, why? Is he busy? Gabriel, sitting something like that. Michael, I know it's important, but get me in. Gabriel, he's booked today. Michael, well, I've been fighting his battles. He's got to have some space for me. Gabriel, look, we've known each other from the beginning, right? Michael, yeah. Gabriel, I'm just trying to save your feelings. Michael, why? Gabriel, well, he told me to tell you he was on vacation. Michael, gasping, what? But we made that up for Gabriel. For people who got assignments he refused to change. Michael is visibly upset. There's a way around it. Michael goes behind Gabriel to God's door, banging and shouting, Almighty One, I need to. Gabriel, moving in front of Michael and blocking him like a football player. Stop. You already know he isn't there. Gabriel straightens up. What are you in for? Michael says, Angels Academy. Gabriel, ooh, you ever taught it? Michael, of course not. Well, I'm in kind of a restless voice, Archangel of War. I'm a fighter, not a teacher. Gabriel, well, when does it start? Michael looks at the crumbled and torn paper. Now. Gabriel, it may be easy. Just go do it. After a few classes, After a few classes, if you dislike it, come and ask for a transfer. Michael, all right. Well, let me get ready. Maybe they know a little something. The choir continues singing Children Go Where I Send Thee. And then it kind of ends on just the Send Thee 4x4. It doesn't go through all of the Children Goes Where I Send Thee because that song gets really, really long if you're not careful. But it's like born in Bethlehem. And then Joseph and Mary will enter. Joseph leads Mary on the donkey around the sanctuary with the dancing angels surrounding them to keep them steady. They walk around and exit, blackout, the lights down. And that's scene 1 of the particular play. So I will read a little bit later because what ends up happening is Michael finds out that Michael ends up liking teaching Angels Academy. But we find out that Gabriel actually tricked him into teaching Angels Academy. And so him and God, who they call the Almighty One, and they kind of all bow and kneel whenever God shows up. So what they do is they end up then kind of getting Gabriel back at his own game because then Michael is in a position where he's just like, oh, well, I'll just take it over for real in real life. And Gabriel's like, well, no, I really want it back because they look like they're having a lot of fun. And so this is the conversation between Michael and Gabriel about, I'm sorry, this is hold on. I'm sorry. Let me get a different one. Let me see if I can get wait. 1 second. So I want to, 1 second. So let me do this one a little bit earlier. Okay, so this one is scene 5. So we'll do the conversation about the little lambs. And then I'll show some pictures and then we'll open up for any conversations you might have. So Cynthia, Tasha, and Marcus are in the classroom finishing the quiz because Michael gave them quizzes, right? Michael enters carrying some stuffed lambs. Cynthia, what are those? Michael, little lambs. Tasha, standing up to get one. Well, isn't this the cutest thing? Marcus, wait, the Archangel of War is carrying a stuffed animal? Where are we, Oz? You losing street cred. Michael, please, you couldn't handle a smidgen of what I've seen. Now, who wants to tell me why I have these? Cynthia, well, it must have to do with the nativity. Michael, on the right path. Tasha, help her out. Tasha, the shepherds. Marcus, what, were they the first on the scene? Michael, absolutely. See, they were like scouts. They saw the star and had to check it out. Marcus, well, they were just herding some lambs. Them dumb animals will follow you off a cliff. Michael, but the shepherds represent him being a leader. They put all their trust in him, like in Psalm 23. Tasha, are you making this up? Michael, don't question the teacher. Cynthia, it is a good point, Tosh. Tasha, well, where is it in the Bible? Show me. Marcus, I feel you. Everyone who comes to the picture now has some bigger meaning, like they're metaphors. Michael, exactly. So the shepherds enter and take the lamb from Michael. They bow in acceptance. They take the lamb to the manger. Marcus, Tasha, Michael, and Marcus watch. So that would be a place where if you have like children's ministry, or if you have some younger persons who you want to make sure are involved in the children's story and they actually have the traditional children's story feel, then they are dressed up as the shepherds or dressed up as the wise persons who come in and actually give these things to the persons as they are actually learning about the Christmas story itself. So Michael, continue. Let's take a break. We'll be back here in 5 minutes. We have more to learn. So lights down on the classroom. Choir sings Rise Up, Shepherd, and Follow. And so Rise Up, Shepherd, and Follow is another song that actually we don't consider, but it is actually also has an African-American traditional meaning for our Christmas songs. And so there's a Star in the East of Christmas Morn, Rise Up, Shepherd, and Follow, et cetera, et cetera. So Michael runs to Gabriel, who was putting back in order the boxes in the storage room. Michael, out of breath. The kings are next. Gabriel, what? Michael, after the shepherds, the kings are next. Gabriel, yes. Shepherds, some years passed, then kings, then followed, then Epiphany. Michael, okay, thanks. Michael runs back out. Gabriel looks after Michael, then through the boxes Michael had earlier, confused. God pokes his head out. God, Gabriel, was that Michael? Gabriel jumping and then bowing quickly. Almighty One. Yeah. God. Amen. Gabriel arises. What's he doing? Gabriel. Well, you're the Almighty One teaching the nativity. God. Oh. Gabriel. Well, he's doing a fine job, just a little rusty on his knowledge, from war. God. I see. Well, carry on then. God leaves from the doorway. Gabriel sighs. Choir sings round the glory manger. The choir, then they turn away Mary and Joseph away from the inn. They turn away Mary and Joseph away from the inn. So this is also another one of the songs. And so it's also a good challenge that if your musicians haven't sang some of the more obscure Christmas songs, this might be also a good opportunity for you to be like, hey, let's change up our Christmas songs a little bit. We'll do some that we know a little bit and maybe kind of pull some new ones in. And then they can also get an opportunity to work with those particular ones. So let me pull up the pictures from Angels Academy. So now Angels Academy, it was, mind you, it was really us really trying in the church, didn't have a lot of proper lighting, didn't have a lot of the things that would be more glamorous in our with what you would think in terms of the actual production itself, but we really were like, we're still going to make this work. So you will see that some of our lights were probably at the wrong angle, but we did try to make it so that there was a part for for heaven itself, and also made it so that there was a part for making sure that there was it was just a part where we could actually just make sure that people could just kind of see. And so it got a little dark in some places, got a little fuzzy, but we learned a lot about lighting and learned a lot about the different kinds of things that you have to actually really do in order to, that you really kind of need to do in order to really stage a full show if you are staging a show. And so that was probably the best lesson, is that we were able to stage the show and see what it looked like to actually stage the show. So, all right. And so this is going to look a little funny, but I do want to see if I want to show my screen in this way. Let me see if I can I'll see if I can make it a little bigger for you all to see. But these are I'm going to show you all just some of the pictures as well, just so you can kind of see what I'm seeing on my screen, and kind of see if you can just see a few of them, and we'll kind of walk through them. So. All right, so this is a picture of, this is one of the pictures of, so Michael is already all the way to the left. Michael is all the way to the right. Gabriel is to the left. And so then you have Marcus, Tasha. Tasha is on the end. Is the lady on the end. And then in the middle is Cynthia. And see where some of our stuff got dark. This is where we would play around with different things. But if you can see up, let me see if I could catch. So this is where God would come in and they would all have to do some work. This is actually toward the end of the play. This is where they kind of all got caught. So you can see where everybody was in there. Now our sanctuary, we were trying our best to get everybody in the shot and tried our best to get everybody in this really small space. They would not, we had, I'll talk about that in a second, but we actually had a little kerfuffle where the pastor was okay with us moving things around in the pulpit, but our trustees were not having it. And so we actually had to rearrange some things because we wanted to make sure. And so it was a little harder for us to, we found that we could not act in the pulpit around the rostrum being there. And so what we did was we just were like, okay, well, we'll just use what we have and try to pull it down. And so what you see is us trying to make some amends. And actually, if you look kind of down toward the right, I think this is one of our final dress rehearsals. Actually, you'll actually see one of the dancers sitting in the front near everything. So hold on, this is them bowing, because every time God comes in, then they immediately bow and God says amen, and then they all get up. Okay. So this is one of you have we had one guy, this is a little this is one of our younger persons. He actually was just a community person. So he actually wasn't a member of our church at first, but he came up and got in to be a part of it. And this is where he's being one of the wise men. And so he's bringing a form of incense to him. I think the incense was actually frankincense and myrrh. We got real creative. So we didn't buy a lot of stuff. I mean, there's someone who actually worked at a hospital and donated all of the sheets for us to use for that. They had to give the sheets back, but someone was like, hey, we got hospital sheets. So we had hospital sheets and we put things up all over the place for that purpose. And so hold on. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I do want to, hold on. I do want to stop sharing my screen for a second because I do want to kind of skip to some of the other pictures so you all can see. Oh, we'll do this part. So this part is actually kind of fun because in the actual script, and I may go actually to the part in the script so you can hear it. So what happens is Marcus gets in trouble with Michael a lot. And because Michael gets in trouble with Marcus, Michael gets in trouble with Michael a lot, then there's a sequence where he does a lot of push-ups. And so that's just part of one of the parts of the scenes where, because we want to be able to laugh in worship. And so it's kind of this joke of, oh, there goes Marcus again. He's about to have to do some more push-ups. And so he does get a chance to do quite a few push-ups. And it was fun for the teenager because he was like, yeah, I get to show that I can do push-ups in worship. And we were like, great, that's fun. We're glad you're flexing. This was when Gabriel was at his desk. We did have scene changes and people actually helping to change the scenes of everything. And so this is when Gabriel is at his desk, being the messenger that Gabriel is. And also we also did tell part of the Christmas story as well. This is where Jesus, when an angel comes, and we actually had the angel be a mime. And so they actually mimed out this particular part and actually they mimed out and actually told Mary that she was actually going to have a baby. And so her reaction is, yeah, right. I don't believe you. And so that part was actually kind of mimed out as well. And so this is also one of the parts for Gabriel and Michael so that they could be a part of, so they can kind of show some other story. So, and so those are some of, yeah, absolutely. So I believe in laughter in worship. I believe in a lot of fun in worship. I believe that we should be able to play in worship as well, because if we don't play in worship, then we don't believe that we can play in worship, then where can we play? I mean, I really believe in that. And I believe that there are artists, ministers, and people whose job it is to also provide the arts in ministry. And that is a specifically wonderful part of the work that is there. So, but we do have a couple more minutes, but that is most of what I have for today. So if anyone has any questions or anyone would just like to ask anything or want to hear any more parts, please go ahead and just type in the chat some information, and I'd love to just kind of chat with you. And again, I'll go ahead and post again the Amazon links. I was checking my website today just to make sure everything worked, and something wasn't working with my website, but both Living Right, which I spoke about earlier, as well as Angels Academy Trilogy are available on Amazon. Living Right, because it is just one play, is $8. I do not ask for royalties. And so I just ask that if you make any money or if you take up an offering, that you give 10% of your offering to your church as a result of the play. Angels Academy, the trilogy, is also available. And that's what I read from. There are 3 plays. And so that one is $20 because there are 3 plays in that one. And so if there are any questions, I'd love for you to go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you have conversations you want to just, or even if you just want to tell me like, hey, I have a drama ministry. I'd love to just know that you have a drama ministry as well, because that would be, that's super exciting for me to hear other people have other drama ministries as such as well. And so, but otherwise, I am so glad that you all are here, and so grateful that you all are, were able to hear some of the words today and to kind of be involved with everything. So, all right. So anybody have any questions or anything in the chat that you'd like to kind of hear, etc. So I'll give you all a second, because I know typing takes a little bit, is a little quicker, is a little slower than anything else. So, all right. All right. So if there are no questions, I guess what I'll do is I will, read, if you don't mind, I will read just one last scene from Angels Academy, the second one. This is Two Wings, and that one we actually, okay. I got questions. Okay. Is it wrong to have a level of standard for drama? No. I think you have a level of standard for worship and have a level of standard for all things. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have an MFA in playwriting specifically. So I have trained to be a playwright. I teach playwriting classes at a local theater company. I help do new play development. I do play labs. And so for me, I take drama very seriously. And I will talk about this more in my class on Friday, but specifically, one of the things is I believe in rehearsal. I don't believe that you should have, people come up on Friday night and get a role and then Sunday morning they're on stage. I don't believe in that. What we do in most dramas, when they teach you about directing, the first thing they do is they teach you to budget about a minute, an hour per minute that you're on stage. I understand that that is not realistic for churches. So I budget about a half an hour per minute on stage. And so, which means that if we have an hour-long show, then we're rehearsing for probably about 30 hours. And the 30 hours can look in different ways. The 30 hours can be that I have maybe, for example, if it's just a two-hander scene with two people, then what I'm doing is I'm going to have those two people, and maybe, for example, I might have those two people come in and do all of their scenes and work on all of their blocking for that part. So what happens is you might have, like, for example, in Angels Academy, I have Michael and Gabriel, and Michael and Gabriel had several scenes together. And so we would have one rehearsal. One night of rehearsal was just Michael and Gabriel and them developing their character dynamics. And also, too, Michael and Gabriel did some tussling on stage. And so we had to go over like fight choreography and how to safely do fight choreography and tussling on stage in a way that would not hurt the person. And so I do really believe in rehearsal. And people are always like, well, I can't believe you run our rehearsals like this. And I'm like, well, I can't believe that you don't want to rehearse because I want to make sure that everyone is off book. And I want to make sure that the rehearsal is the show is the best it can, because it's not just a performance for me. This is something that can really change people's lives. And if you approach it with the same responsibilities that ministers have to approach it with, where you have to say, you know what, we are legit doing this so that we can possibly win souls, and legit do this so that we can possibly bring people to Christ, and do this so that people can possibly see ministry a different way, then you will take down the time to really study and show yourself approved. It's the same thing with a sermon. You don't want the pastor to come up having never exegeted the text and they just read something over and over again. For me, it's the same thing. So when I write a play, I really exegete the text. I really sit down and really think through all of it. And so I absolutely believe that there is a standard for drama. While I think there's a way to give critique, and I think that there is a way to encourage people to do things a little bit better in their ministry, in their work. I don't think you should walk up to people and be like, your drama is terrible. You don't do that. You just don't. I mean, even in theater, when you're working with people and you're developing their plays, you don't just walk up to a playwright and be like, your play is bad. You go in and there is a process that we talk through about how to develop a play and how to make it work. And also, too, one of the cool things is we have to really trust that our congregations are smart and want to see quality. All of our congregations are seeing movies. All of our congregations are watching TV. All of our congregations are going to see plays, even if they're conducting little mini things or they're watching stand-up comedies. Our churches know if something is good or not. And so I would actually have, as I was writing, some of the church, there were a couple people in the church who really liked drama or just really liked telling good stories. And they would give me critiques of the plays and be like, hey, maybe you should change this, or, oh, maybe this is a little bit maybe out of character for this person. And I would go back and take some attention to those areas and then kind of go back to what we were doing. And so I absolutely think that there should be a standard for drama. I do think that you should kind of think about what drama is, what it's supposed to be used for in that particular environment. And also if there's something that may not be up to the standard that you want in your work, then maybe having a conversation and saying, okay, so how can we make it stronger? And what ways can we do that? Yes, all artists are sensitive about their work because you're putting your work out into the world. It is a scary thing if you've ever put anything out into the world. And it takes a lot of courage to do so. Yet a really good artist will also know that they are not the wisest person when it comes to all of their work, and that they are being open for critique so long as the critique itself is more supportive and does the work that it's supposed to do. So, yes. Let me see. I want to make sure to say, okay, so can I talk more about the impact of ministry in church and community? Oh, I will go ahead and do this so I don't forget. I want to make sure that I do have a chapter in ministry that impacts, and I talk about playwriting 101 in it. And don't forget that if you have not already purchased your book, then the ebook is 99 cents today on Amazon. So go ahead and take care of it. It is a new release. We definitely want to make sure that we see that. That is super important. So talking about the impact of this ministry in my church and community. So, yay, all right, Donna, got the Kindle version today. I say everybody should get the Kindle. I'm getting some cardback copies, but I'm actually about to buy the Kindle version. I haven't purchased mine yet, but I do want to have the Kindle version too, so I can take it wherever I go. And so when it was very active in the church, I've moved around since then, so I'm not still there, but we started having a thriving drama ministry. We had people who could build things, and so they were literally building sets for us. So they were getting so we started out having like these little itty bitty, literally someone gave us like some little theater blocks. And then someone actually, from that point, people were like, hey, we want to be involved in this ministry. So people would come and donate their time and build us sets. People would come and donate their time and walk us through different things. The morale of the church went up as well, I think. So we would have probably about 2 shows a year. And I had regular actors. And so some of them were things that I had written and some of them weren't. Some of them were plays that I had just kind of chosen. Like, for example, this is a really old one, but if you ever want to get like a funny one that always hits and actually involves a lot of people in the community, Nanny Helen Burroughs, who actually is the person who founded Women's Day as a fundraiser, she wrote this play called The Slabtown District Convention. It's really hard to find, but I will email this play to you. It is a play about a missionary meeting. The meeting goes on for 2 hours. So literally the premise is that it would be kind of like if you actually had a church meeting and you could go in and out of the actual church. It's like you can go in and out during their process of their meeting. You have people coming into church, people who don't have, of course, their portions paid. They don't have, they didn't bring their money. One of the missionaries got fed up with people and talked about how we're sending, we're going to ministry, we're sending things out for ministry, but we're sending people's old clothes out for ministry. And so it's clothes that you wouldn't want to wear, and you're sending it out for people, and what kind of people would do that. And so it's kind of timeless. The play was actually written in like 1908. It is super hilarious. But it is a bear of a play to kind of put together, but you can modify it. And it's a very large play. And so it's one that the entire church can kind of get involved with. The people, and it has singing in it. There is some dancing. It was just a lot of fun also, because it was just a lot of fun. And people still actually talk about that play quite a bit and how funny it was, and how much they enjoyed being a part of it. And then with church plays, I tend to try to get larger casts because then, all those larger casts can bring more people in. So the ones that I've seen do better and involve the community more are the ones that had larger casts. And even if it was like, hey, dance rehearsal and these persons will be dancing or these persons will be kind of the extras. It's something that you wouldn't normally see if you were in theater because, of course, you'd have to pay everybody. But in church, you can actually involve everyone. As I mentioned before, too, I want to talk about kind of the impact where we found people's skills that were people didn't feel like they were connected to a particular ministry, but they would say, oh, you know what? Well, I can decorate. So I'm going to come and do your set design for you so that you don't have to think about doing the set design, and I'll come up and I'll help you do it. One of the things that we found was that no matter how long it took us to actually set the stage up and actually put everything together, the day of the show, it took us about 30 minutes to get everything taken down because most of the people who came to see the shows and actually came to see the work, whether it was during the middle of worship or not during the middle of worship, because we've actually had some on Saturday evenings as well. People would stay after, and they would help us to strike the set. So we would have the church looking back, ready for Sunday morning worship by the end of the evening, because people who came to see the show really enjoyed it, and they would just be a part of it. And so those are some of the kinds of ways. We also saw some people, like some of the members who we didn't know how to reach, would come and they would just be involved in ministry, and ministry would happen. We would have days where we'd have to stop rehearsal and walk with somebody through whatever issue they were having that day. And that was just a part of the rehearsal process. And we knew it would happen at some point, and we knew we just had to be sensitive to it. How do I see drama ministries impacting churches and communities in the future? I feel like drama ministries, if we're really sensitive to drama ministries and churches and communities, they've always been there. I think that we just have to really kind of give them the ear and evaluate the drama as being the part of worship that it really always has been. Theater is birthed out of church, which I'll talk about on Friday. So theater is already naturally a part of the church. There is a sacred secular split that I'll also talk about, but it's already naturally there. The arts are already built into worship. Most of us like the theatrics of worship already. And so if we just seeing how drama ministries and how skits and things of that nature, for example, having a skit to be the scripture lesson for the day instead of having the formal scripture, or doing like a small video as a part of worship, or maybe having something that's already there, but also just thinking specifically about how drama or how the arts in general just work as a part of it. I have a friend who does where they have a full arts ministry at their church, and what they do is they do an art project as part of worship. So when people come up to the altar for prayer, or if they come up and do offering, part of their offering is building a part of this arts piece. And so they would have different specific arts piece that led to whatever the lectionary was that day, led to whatever the sermon was that day, and made it an integral part. And so for me, I think that we just have to kind of evaluate it more in our own spaces. But I think that it's already impacting churches and already impacting communities. We just have to kind of turn our ear more to it, if that makes some sense. So yeah. So, well, thank you all so much. That is my time. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you, Keisha, for the invitation and for always allowing me to kind of be myself and knowing that I had this other artistic space. Thank you, Donna and Solomon, for all of your questions in the chat. Definitely buy the book. Ask me any questions. I'm around all week, so you can absolutely message me if there's something you wanted to ask, but you weren't able to ask here. And otherwise, and don't forget, of course, to buy the Ministry That Impacts book. I do have a chapter in there about playwriting 101, which I think is its own other animal, but we can also talk about it. But thank you all so much, and have a good afternoon and good evening. Thank you.